Welcome, everybody, to Talks Ambition, where we talk, we have ambition, but are we really ambitious? The answer is yes. My name is Moose, and I'm coming up with weird slogans right on the fly because Emma asked me to. Today, we've got Gordo and special guest Regdor on the show today. Guys, how you guys doing?
I'm doing just fine, Moose. Thanks for the introduction. I'm glad we're spitting catchphrases off the dome here. I think that'll make for a great show today.
Yeah, it's great content for sure.
I'm living the dream. I'm just happy to be here. Yeah, I've got sunshine for the first time in California. When I moved here, I was told it was supposed to be sunny and 75. I have yet to receive that for the past 3 weeks. So I'm in high spirits.
Very funny because we were feeling the same way here in Vegas. We have it has been one of the wettest. No, just keep your head out of the gutter, but very wet here in Vegas for the last several weeks. Everyone's saying, "Oh, the drought is over. Oh, the drought is over." But uh I don't believe a word they say, Regdor. We are still in a desert.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think like a concurrent drought is what makes a desert a desert. Otherwise, it's just a place.
Gordo doesn't know anything about that though because
I
he
don't.
he
I
lives
live
in the
by the
cool.
I live by the largest source of fresh water in the world.
Oh God, what it would
Don't
like.
test me on this. I don't know my geography.
Yeah, we're not here to be smart. We're just here to be good looking
I'm here
and
for geography fun facts.
oh my
I
god.
was not told that's what the podcast is gonna be about. I'm gonna leave now.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. We'll let you go now. Goodbye. Thumbs up. But yeah, Regdor, you are someone that I wanted to talk to for a long time. You are a like jack of all trades professional. I've seen you kind of everywhere in the scene, in tournament positions, like a commentator. You've been a coach. You've been in like you've done high profile events as a color caster with Path to LCS, and and from what I'm told, you're involved in NACL this year, right?
So behind the scenes in the LCS and the ACL, I am a referee. It was a great opportunity that I got to start last year, like right around playoffs. So like my first day, I think was Team Liquid's. I can't remember who they're playing against, best of five, but I was the ref on the Team Liquid side. And so I'm trying to get over being starstruck and being like 5 feet away from Blippo and doing my job at the same time. So it was a lot, but it was definitely like an exciting thing that I get to be a part of now at the studio.
Yeah, I mean, welcome. I'm kind of Star Trek right now. Like, I got two of the most intelligent casters on the scene. Uh, taught like kind of flanking me. So Gordo has always made me feel just very like in awe of what he knows, and I feel like I'm gonna feel the same with you, Regdor. So thank
I'm
you.
I'm only bringing geography fun facts today, man. So I don't know about League of Legends knowledge so much, but we'll see.
Also, shout out to Emma for making us this dope graphic for today. Thank you so much, as always, for being a phenomenal producer here at Team Ambition. Continuing to make things as cute and wonderful as they are. I'm getting messaged by Emma right now, telling me that I am wrong. But I'm just gonna still continue to shout Emma. She's great. She's great.
Yeah, nonetheless, every time I've worked with Emma, it's been phenomenal. Maybe she doesn't make all the graphics, but she makes it all work, and I'll take that.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. There's a reason why I'm not there. There's a reason why I am in front of the camera and not behind the camera. But okay, this is a weird opportunity because I've never had the opportunity to just talk with casters because we've always had like players or tournament organizers or something like that behind the scenes. But this is the first podcast that I've been on where it's just been casters. And I wanted to talk about kind of like the casting experience, especially from the amateur to the semi-professional to the professional side of things, because we're all kind of in different levels of our journey here. But I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys have a moment or maybe like a series, like a casting moment that you realized this is something that I can do. This is something that I want to do. I want to be a caster? Was there a specific moment? Was there a person that you talked to? Like, what was that for you?
You want to go first, Regdor?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll be on the spot here. So for me, I thought I wanted to do something in esports. I was getting out of the Marines. I did project management, logistics. I was a recruiter for a while, over a course of 10 years. And on my way out, I got to work with a startup that was trying to make an esports scene for military service members and veterans. And it was really cool, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought video games were awesome and I'm going to try my hand at some different things. And my like first college that I went to, I got to be like the secretary of the student organization for esports. I coached the League of Legends team there that was like a budding upstart kind of program, and both those were fun. But it wasn't until I moved down to the University of Oklahoma. They have an amazing esports program there, and I started to look at production, shoutcasting, and I kind of got in my start. And I was like, I can talk fast, I can talk cool, but I love the nerdy details. And it was one of those very first practice casts that's super awkward, right? With just a random VOD, you and a coach and another co-caster in a room, and they're like, okay, start talking, just start doing stuff. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I can go off on weird tangents and talk about these minute details. And that's where I knew, like, as an older student, I found like a kind of niche for me, and that's where I was like, I'm gonna be hooked on this. This is what I'm gonna do.
Love that. Especially since, like, thank you for your service, by the way. Like, that's I I wanted to be in the military. I fun fact, fun not geography fact. I applied for West Point and I didn't get in because of medical reasons. Um but I got all the way to the step up until West Point, and then unfortunately because of my asthma, I wasn't allowed to move forward with that. Asthma always takes they take the good ones out. The lungs do. They do, don't they? So I decided to go into casting where I can talk and continue to use my lungs in really effective ways. um no. But so yeah, yeah, thank you so much for your service. And one
Absolutely,
of these days I gotta like pick your brain about some of some of the things you had to do in the
absolutely.
Marines. Yeah. But Gordo, like what was that moment for you?
Yeah, so I think I'll take like a kind of different angle on it. So I have loved League of Legends and League Esports for forever. I like downloaded the game in like 2011, so I was like 14 years old, being like, oh damn, it would be so cool to like get really good at this game and play and then or do anything involving the sport. And very quickly it became apparent I was not good enough to do that, but I went through college and I dabbled in casting a little bit there, but I was always balancing it with other stuff. It wasn't until the pandemic that I really kind of had the time working from home and everything, uh, and really wanted to try to give back and do something in the esport. That I really picked up casting, but even then, I don't think I really knew that it was what I wanted to dedicate, this huge chunk of my time to until it was Risen Champions League, the one that qualified you to Proving Grounds in spring 2021. I remember I was supposed to cast a series uh, for the play-ins there. It was like my first kind of quote unquote big-ish opportunity. My first time being watched by more than like 30 people, and my internet crapped out like an hour before I was supposed to do it, and I had to get subbed out and switch it to somebody
Oh
else, and I
no.
was just like crushed. And I kind of like came to the realization that night though, where I was like, if this wasn't something I really wanted to do, I wouldn't care this much about not having to work tonight. So that was my come to Jesus moment for really being dedicated to casting.
That makes me want to cry. Gosh.
Oof. Oof.
Appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, no,
Oh my
absolutely.
god. I if that happened to me, I think my first time, like I took myself way too seriously when I was in my early 20s. When something went wrong, I like it was like like I broke down. There were several times when I was doing something and it didn't work out for me and I would just be in tears.
Yeah.
Couldn't if I would really wanted to cast like it sounded like you did and I couldn't, like I think I'd be heartbroken. I
It
think I
was
might.
tough. Shout out to Cole though over on Risen. He like rescheduled me onto another stream, and I still got to do some of that event. So it worked out at the end of the day. But
That's cool. That's cool. Um, especially like God, and that's been it's now been a couple of years too. So shout outs to them staying consistent. That's a huge thing. And I'm glad that you didn't get discouraged, Gordo, because you're just so smart about the game. I can't stop praising how smart you are. Give me another geography fact.
Oh, dude, that's actually like my worst subject. That's the only thing I know is
It was
and I
just a
think I'm
meme.
wrong too, by the way. I like did some Googling. I was like, is that even right? No, I don't even think that's right.
Oh damn. Okay, well shit. Okay, new topic, new topic. Okay, we'll talk about me. Um, so I think this means that I actually started casting the earliest out of you three because I started casting Smash back in 2016. I'm moving up on year 7, year 8. Um, but I in college too, like I had the opportunity to meet Day 9 and Tasteless's mom. I don't know if you remember them from the StarCraft days. But she came over to host an event for Heroes of the Storm back when it was still in beta, and Dana and Artosis and Tasteless were all going to be there hosting it, and like kind of casting and kind of dabbling in it. Um, and I ended up having a like 3.5 hour conversation with her talking about like how they got into the casting scene and some of their tricks of the trade, like how they used to be up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to cast the Korean StarCraft games and like meet with Korean players and try to like get stuff like that. And she was like very serious about like if you want to be a caster, you got to be willing to be up at all hours of the day. You got to be able to be willing to cast other scenes and other leagues because that's the only reason why they were able to get to Korea and get to the name that they were at. And I think just the allure of it to be able to talk about video games all day, like I instantly fell in love. And from that moment on, I completely dropped saying that I was going to be a professional player and I said, I want to be a caster. So I started doing it that way.
Yeah, that's
That's dope.
like that hustle is something that's so like crazy. Even now, even in the more corporatized, if you will, version of the scene, because it's still kind of the wild, wild west. Is like most people can't afford to be casters full time. There's not many jobs out there that give that sort of paycheck where you can, be an adult. I don't know, living in say California and not be the LCS or the NACL casters and say like this is what I do full time. So you're like always scrapping at hours. I remember when I first started, like getting home, like I worked from home and I had enough time to log out of work, grab my dinner, and then I would be on my call time eating and talking about the game and the setup for the night for, $5 a night. But like that's what I had to do to like even get a shot to improve.
That's what I still do, man. Except I don't eat dinner. I can't eat and then cast. I'm gonna pass out on broadcast. So I have to save it
What?
until after.
You're not a
That's
snacker?
why.
Nah, I can't. If I eat a whole meal, dude, I feel like I'm ready to fall asleep. That happens with lunch at work every day, and it would definitely happen with casting. So, gotta eating the late night meals on cast nights for sure.
So a fail of mine that happened, this had to have been like 20, like I was casting Smash and one of the I didn't realize how difficult it was to cast and talk at the same time, and to eat as well. um so I was at a local Smash event and it was like getting a little bit rowdy. There was drinks and stuff like that, but somebody had made some popcorn and I was like, I want some popcorn. And I ended up choking on a kernel like midway through a fight in Smash 4. I think it was like Roy, which is the character that I really loved, up against a top tier like Sonic or something, which I hate. And it was like a really high moment because Roy was like getting the Sonic off stage, was almost about to take the stock away, and then I started choking on this popcorn kernel, and it was awful, terrible. I will never snack on popcorn again during a cast, and I very rarely since then eaten during cast. But I'm a snacker. I like eating. And I have like gummies or like a little treat or something that I have when I'm not talking. I know that I'm gonna get myself in trouble for it one day, but I eat and cast at the same time.
I can't. My brain like is already doing 17 things. If I try to like chew in between, that's gonna be a point where something's gonna happen, and yeah, I'm gonna be like spitting kernels all over my monitor. So
Yeah.
I just keep a giant jug of water next to me,
Hmm.
and that's it. But during breaks, yeah, absolutely, I'll be like sitting in my chair in the corner, like slamming some goldfish.
Oh, what's your snack of choice? Is it goldfish or do you have another one?
Yeah, I think it's goldfish or just like random chips. It's either like one of those two or sunflowers. Sunflower seeds are like
What?
12 out of 10. But I'm like a Cro Magnum. Nobody ever taught me how to eat sunflower seeds. So for like 20 years,
Shells and all.
I just ate them, just shell and all. Yeah, and now I can't stop doing it. So I'm probably gonna have some medical issues for that later on in life.
Good
But
fiber.
yeah,
Good fiber.
thanks for supporting me, Gordo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed that.
Fun medical facts, fun gastronomy facts.
Thank God. If I didn't have Gordo here to tell me about gastronomy and these fun facts, I would be so bored. So thanks, Gordo. No offense, Gordon, or no offense, Regdor. You're just not giving me any fun facts. Like,
I'm a storyteller. I don't know about fun facts. I don't know if any of them work for this setting, but someday I'll get better at it. That's what I got to do to get on Gordo's level. I got to get more fun facts.
well, you're on your own. Like, you're kind of like, I don't want to say in a league of your own, but you are like definitely on like a really high level of casting. Like, you have done some like big events. Especially like proving grounds, like that's something that's goals, I think, for me, right? Like, I've wanted to get into proving grounds. Like, I think that, like, I mean, Gordo has casted for TA for proving grounds, but I don't think you've been on the main stage, right?
Not since like 2021 when you could kind of like do when it was like individual orgs, it was different casts for every tournament.
Mm. Yeah. So like I want to ask you, like, Regdor, like, what do you think was the biggest thing for you, like, to get to that proving grounds position? Was it like, did you meet the right person? Did you do the right event? Like,
I think it was a mixture of like doing the right event, knowing the right person, and then I jokingly say being an adult, but that's like an aside thing
mm,
of I'd been casting for a few months. I'd done a split with Victoris, and I'd done some with a college at OU, and I got a message one day from somebody saying, "Hey, we're doing a LAN about an hour and a half down the road from you. We got your name recommended. Would you be open to doing this?" And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I would. Sign me up. I've never gotten to do a LAN. And so one of my good friends, the one who actually got me started in casting, his name's was it that Woo Brandon? Great guy. He does a bunch of casting for a bunch of different titles, but me and him both love League, and he messaged me saying like, hey, how do I know like this is real? I'm like, it's real because I'm also doing it. And he's like, okay, great. So we go down to Lawton, Oklahoma. If you've never heard of it, Google it sometime. There's not much there except for an army base. And we do this weekend event, and it was on the main stage. One of the orgs was actually Tempest, and I think it was Return of the Middle Sticks was the other team in the
oh my
finals.
God.
And we're casting this. I think it was just best of three, and we're going into the third game. And I'll never forget. I had Twitch chat open on the side because I just I like looking at this sort of stuff, and it just says the path to LCS has raided the channel because I think PGCQ or something had ended, and so it drops 2,000 viewers in there in the last game of the grand finals. And I was like, I have to close this right now. I just closed my laptop and get through the cast, and it was amazing. But after that was like I had kind of made a bit of a name for myself right there in the Midwest and Oklahoma area. And then when Proving Grounds came around, I was like, I'm gonna full send it, and so I full sent it. I had a full time job at the time. I had interviewed for an esports position with another organization, and I was so confident I was going to get the job. I quit my current job the same
What?
day. The same day I quit.
What?
Yeah, yeah. The same day I quit. Now, listen, folks at home, don't do this. The same day that I quit, I got a message saying, "Hey, we're actually going to go another direction." And so I was like, I don't have a job. And about 2 hours later, I get a message from Proving Grounds saying, "Hey, we selected you to be one of the casters for the Open Qualifier." And I was like, "Oh, thank Jesus. Okay, well, we're going all into casting. It's sink or swim." And so that's how I kind of got started and got in there.
Holy
That's
crap.
awesome.
Holy
Yeah,
crap.
it was a really big gamble. I mean, otherwise I might be doing this podcast from a box.
Oof. Oof. I like, that is so inspiring and also so nerve-wracking. Like, you just you quit your job. You thought that, like, you made the biggest mistake, and then you finally get told, "Hey, you're actually gonna be casting another really major event," and look at you. You're now in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I think that like I don't know what I would say is like what makes me successful vice anybody else. I think there's so many talented people right around this level, and it kind of dovetails into a lot of conversations that I'm sure we're gonna have. But it's really that I got lucky and networked with the right people. I made a good impression and was a professional and always took feedback. I think that I know about this much about casting, and a lot of that's just charisma and being a nerd who watches a lot of videos from a lot of different people and try to like get an informed opinion on things. But it was honestly just kind of being an adult, being the level head in the room, and just willing to soak up any and all information. If you tell me I suck, tell me why I suck. That's great. I love that. That makes me better. It doesn't, make me worse, or I don't need to go sit over here and think that you hate me. I can take those feelings and recognize that it's just to better me and get me better, ready for the future. And I think that's a hard thing for young casters is that you go and cast a best of three on, say, a Wednesday, and you're doing a gold plat level league. You do 3 games, you get off the cast. Now what? What did I do good? What did I do bad? Do I even know what storytelling is? Do I know how to hero build? All these different elements that I didn't know for the first year or so. It wasn't until I got to Proving Grounds and the producer there, Emily, now the producer for NACL, would do like basically like a cold call. She'd come into your room like a few minutes before the cast and be like, okay, what's your narrative notes for the day? What do you know about the players? And if you didn't know the answer, she's like, we'll figure it out. You better get on, Google and get the answers. And she would help like move you along. But she was trying to better you and make you a better caster with each one of the games, as opposed to I show up, I do 3 games, I walk out with a paycheck, and there we kind of go. And I think that's like the big difference is the mentorship and the networking that a lot of us just don't get, depending on where we're casting at. That was my soapbox.
Good point.
No, absolutely. Like I think that that was a big, like, kinda wake up call for me. Like, just kinda personally, I think that I've had a really, like when I was in school, like, junior high, high school, I felt like I excelled really well in all of, like, my coursework, and I was able to get into, like, really, like, advanced programs. I was doing ROTC, I was doing debate, I was doing, like, quiz team, and so, like, I was very, like, active, and I thought that I was, like, juggling really, really well, all these things, and I definitely had an ego about myself, especially when I moved into casting to begin with, and that I think has been one of the biggest inhibitors for me is, like, going, like, stepping down from that pedestal can be very painful, but then also recognizing your worth and, like, putting yourself on, like, a middle ground pedestal to show that you're not actually, like, you're not a piece of shit, but you're also not, like, king shit. Like, you gotta be somewhere in the middle. Like, you gotta be somewhere in the middle for that. And for the first several years, like, that I was casting, I was just kind of casting. I was, like, embarrassed, I think, at some points to be reviewing my work because it was like, oh, my work is just too good. There's no reason for me to do that. And I kinda got stagnated and I kinda got stale, and it was when people started, like when I started, like, taking feedback from others, I remember when I was first trying to get into League of Legends, like, I reached out to Cubby, I reached out to Smacks, I reached out to Zephyr, like, I reached out to some of these people and asked them, like, "How did you get there?" And one of the common things they said was feedback. Like, you gotta get feedback from people, and that's some of the ways that you're able to build connections, and that was, I think, something big for me that I had to realize. And I know that I'm not the only one that has to, kind of change that mentality.
Yeah. I think we talked about it a little bit on the last episode just with goal setting and stuff, but I think yeah, I think a lot of I see this a lot with newer casters coming into the scene, and I think it kind of happens to everybody to some degree or another. Is you start off, and especially if you're somebody who ends up sticking around for long enough, you probably are pretty successful at the start. You can move up from your gold league to your plat league to your diamond league. I think pretty fast often, and maybe you get another cool opportunity here or there. But at some point, you hit a ceiling. That is, you don't just break through automatically the way that you do when you're first starting out. And that kind of dissonance that creates, I think, is a big struggle for a lot of people. And they don't know, what's the answer here. Do I grind every single day? Do I just keep talking to people until somebody knows who I am? It's the real answer is more review and more self-reflection and getting better, but it takes it's different people react differently to that phenomena, but I see it happen a lot, and I see, I have friends who are newer casters starting out that are just hitting that. I have friends who are just getting over it. I have people who've been up and down that hump already. I think it happens with a lot of people in the scene. And I'm
You know
sure it
what?
happens in areas other than casting too. I'll bet it happens with players and stuff as well.
Yeah. Fun fact, casting every day and ruining your voice is not the recipe for success.
Write that one down. I'll keep it right here.
Mhm.
I felt the same way at lands. Was like the first land that I did was like a double elimination best of ones, and I think I did 6 or 7 games the first day, and it's just the two of us. And my play by play Brandon is just hoarse by games 5 and 6, and you're like, well, I've got time to go to sleep, wake up for call time, and figure out how to not make my throat hurt and like aftercare and stuff like that. That as a new, I didn't learn about that stuff until like a year in, where you're like, oh, you should drink tea afterwards, and cough drops are great and stuff like that. As I'm over here downing Red Bulls, and eating tacos and all these things, I'm like, why does my throat hurt, guys? I don't get it.
Oof.
But just
Oof.
even stuff like that, yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I did all the dumb stuff so other people don't have to. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's a leftover from collegiate debate is, caffeine makes it harder to have your vocal muscles work right, but you also needed to stay awake. So it's kind of about balancing those two things, and getting some water on the side wherever you can.
Yeah, it's so hard, especially like at a LAN, to not give in to the Red Bull. Like, oh my god. Especially some of the bigger lands where it's like, hey, just passing out Red Bulls or G Fuels or whatever it may be. Like, one of the big lands that's here in Vegas, they have a it's like a yearly sponsor with G Fuel, and there's just this big bucket of G Fuel at the center of the convention that everyone can come up to and take as many G Fuels as they want. Um, and then if you're on stream or whatever, maybe it's like, hey, you got to sponsor G Fuel, you got to drink G Fuel on stream, and by like day 3, I'm already done with G Fuel because I hate I God forbid I say it on stream, but I hate energy drinks. Like I'm a coffee person at heart. And I'm drinking G Fuel now for 3 days, and my voice just is like it's like I've smoked 10 packs before I got on stream. It's awful.
See, the pro tip is if you have to drink G Fuel or anything on stream, is you go pour out the can and you fill it up with water.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
bartenders do the same
wow.
thing, right? Like when it's like, oh, take a shot with us. The bartender just takes a shot of water. Super smart. Can't
Yeah.
beat them. Yeah. See, there's my fun fact. Am I entertaining now?
Yes, yes, you are. God damn it. That's actually a cool fact. I didn't think about it. This is why I need intelligent people in my life. Or I should say experienced people in my life.
Fun mixology facts.
Yeah. Fun mixology fact. I guess it's my turn next to give a fun fact. I'll think of something. I'll get there. We'll come full circle. We'll bring
You'll
it
get
back to
there.
you, Gordo. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll be like fun fact, hot potato, and whoever has a fun fact at the end of the cast is
We'll build our own Jeopardy board from
yeah.
from this episode.
I just ran
Quiz
across
at the
mine
end.
by accident. I don't know what I'm gonna do if I'm actually put on the spot. I'm gonna be screwed.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. I'll like I have a degree in history. I'll find a fun history fact that we'll get into and we'll go from there. Um but uh Regdor, when I was like kind of messaging you about coming in on the stream, like you kind of were talking about some of the new additions to the LCS, because on the player side of things, we're talking about how players have the same kind of, they have to progress from collegiate to academy to, or from collegiate to proving grounds to academy to LCS. Like, and you, I think, had the opportunity to maybe kind of cast some of these players as they moved up the league and up the ladder. Like, um, Kai, you were telling me the list of all the academy people that were in the LCS. I got to pull that up now. But like, is there
Yeah.
one that like you like? What are your thoughts on that? Like, kind of want to pick your brain about like kind of the player side of things and. kind of their growth, because I think it's important for us as well to keep that in mind as we create narratives for these players moving up.
Oh yeah, no, I think that one of the things I mentioned about it was that you have a lot of people kind of breaking through, like Harry and Ayla, Yon are three off the top of my head. You know, for people who haven't maybe watched that much Academy or now the NACL, you know, TL's back to back proving ground champions, and a lot of that was with Harry, Yon, Ayla, as well as Bradley, who's still down on Team Liquid Challenger, and the last one was Amaro last year, and they were phenomenal. I think they only dropped 3 or 4 games over the course of all summer. I could be wrong on that, but it was a pretty resounding victory. And now they've made it up. You also have, you know, Busio and Tenacity as another two, as we'll call fresh graduates. I was listening to Cubby, Joshi, and Rafa talking about it on Raising NA the other day of like, you have this new class and they're all incredibly strong and they've got somewhere to work. And that's kind of what the goal of Academy, I think, was back then, was to help develop people. And I think they were the ones who coined like that phrase of like, oh, the class of 22, because they've graduated. They've learned what they needed to learn. They showed they were resoundingly strong, and now they get to move up. And then in turn, you've had, you know, APA, Sniper, Rose Thorn, Doxa, Masu, just to name a few, that now have moved from the amateur side and collegiate, from what is now provisional teams to one of these fixed position teams. And seeing that kind of growth is a good thing, because we always talk a lot in the space about how are we growing North American talent. And, you know, a lot of people with pitchforks and fire sticks. I don't know what the right word is.
Torches.
Torches. Yeah,
Torches
there we
and
go.
torches.
Thanks,
Yeah, yeah,
Gordo.
fire sticks.
I had to think about that one.
Yeah, all of us are
They're
like fire
streaming right to
sticks.
their TV.
Oh gosh, yeah, they're all streaming on their TV, but like that was been a big thing, and you have all of these homegrown talent right here now starting to break through. I did a weird Excel thing of based on the average date of their start in a professional league, and now over half the players have you know, debuted in the past 3 years in the LCS. We still got some, you know, rather old heads around, um, but it's starting to feel new and refreshing, and that's a really great thing. And I think I was trying to tie that to on the opposite side of talent, you know, because collegiate is not the end all be all for players. I think it is a path, and APA is an example of somebody, you know, at Maryville, kind of CLOL dynasty there, and now moving up into the NACL fixed position teams. And on the other side of production, observers, casters, that course isn't so well defined, kind of like we were talking about earlier, where you go from a gold league all the way up to a diamond league, and now we'll call them uncapped leagues. Where are those at? You know, how do I get there? And none of this actually leads to a real path to the NACL, to the qualifiers, to NACL talent, and eventually to the LCS. Rafa being one of the premier members that we can talk about. Of he's grinded way back since the Cup days, has been amazing. Casted icons for Wild Rift, their worlds, and has just been an amazing talent. But he's the first one to break through, at least here in North America.
Yeah, for sure. You covered a lot of topics there, Phil,
Yeah,
that I want
I'm
to
a
respond
big
to, but
monologuer.
it's all right. No, it's perfect. But no, I think to rewind the clock a little bit there, back to when we were talking about LCS, I think some credit definitely needs to be given there for what Evil Geniuses accomplished last year with JoJo Pune and Danny. You know, because I think a lot of people who are fans of like other sports, traditional sports especially, will vouch for is, you know, it was really always supposed to be this way. You know, there always should have been a way to move up through the ranks and to consistently like get yourself seen. And you know, I think for the first couple of years, the academy scene wasn't that, not in a robust enough way to where you could legitimately rely on it as a source for talent consistently. And I just want people to keep in mind that, you know, it should be this way, and not you know, probably not all 5 of these guys are going to be superstars starting this year, right? Like, you know, the hit rate can't be that good. Somebody's not going to work out. Somebody's not going to be here 2 years from now, and you know, will have been a good prospect that maybe didn't pan out, and that's okay, because there will be more next year, and there will be more the year after that, and it's about giving them the opportunity to be able to step up. I really hope that that this momentum continues to snowball and gets us to a place where the NACL is a very, very robust path to the LCS, and that if you are the best player in the NACL, you will be in the LCS next split no matter what. I think last year we really did that. The prospect or most valuable prospect award. First one was given to Dokla. He's in the LCS next split and is now doing great. Second most valuable prospect given to Buzio. He's in now as well. I would love to keep that trend going. I think that's a great recipe for success as a league and as a region.
And like it continues to I guess kind of set the principles here that this isn't like the LCS and league isn't reinventing the wheel, right? When it comes to developing players and talent, like this is the same thing that happens in basketball, the same thing that happens in football, in different ways. Like in football, it's a lot more like collegiate based. Like you get your Heisman trophies, your Heisman awards, and you draft out of college. In basketball, you have college basketball, but you also got the G League as well, where you can kind of develop your skills and go on these like pseudo 10-day contracts and things like that that are kind of allowing you to play NBA games, but on a much smaller scale. Like you're not playing 72 games a year or 82 games. You're playing maybe just 10, or you're playing a two-way or whatever it may be. And the league has been like, I've been critical in the past of league's development in the semi-professional collegiate system with the way that they have not only like treated players but also treated the casters and the talent as well, because you have to grow that whole thing. And I think the idea that now there is some established players and the idea of a most valuable prospect moving in, like who knows how well Dokla is going to perform? Who knows how well some of these new LCS players are actually going to be able to perform moving into that. But every year at least has been some sort of improvement, and I think the NACL is a little bit more of an improvement on the developmental side of things. Now we have the opportunity to see what have we learned from proving grounds, what have we learned from the cup days, what have we learned from X, Y, and Z, to be able to come into it, and how are you going to be able to transfer that into LCS talent? Because it's something that we've struggled with in the past here as a region. We have a really good import program, but maybe not a homegrown talent idea right at the moment. We gotta keep that seed fertile and growing.
See, I hate to be the guy who goes in the opposite direction, but I think that there's like two parts to this. I think that, and this is an indictment on every one
I
of them.
I don't
Mhm.
hate you, Regdor. I don't hate you. You can say whatever you want.
Let him speak.
Thank
I
you.
might.
Yeah.
Let-
So I don't think we have as much of a problem finding talent, especially North American grown. A conversation about this is really like 100 Thieves next. If you look at the history of 100 Thieves next, people like Poom, Kinvi, Tenacity, Yon, Copy, Busio, Gamsu, uh, and more. Instinct is another great one. Insanity, Keel,
half the
Fnatic,
NACL is
Darkling.
former 100 Thieves next junglers.
Yeah,
NXI, Goo.
yeah.
Will isn't there anymore, but he was.
So many people have come and gone through 100 Thieves Next, and a lot of talent has grown through there. And the question is, well, what happens to these players? And I think Max Waldo said on an interview, I think it was Hotline League, that talked about how hard coaching is in relation to a traditional sports model. If you're a young coach in football, strength and conditioning, then you go from there to working on the defense, offense, special teams, and then you're the coordinator for that whole team section, and then you finally find your way up to the head coaching position. Even our most major orgs, C9 for instance, has a head coach for the NACL, has a head coach for the LCS, has a few positional coaches and some analysts. It's not nearly as robust, and Max Waldo is a great example of somebody who went from being a coach to the head coach in a very short amount of time. And so a lot of those things, a lot of people talk about in the space is like, we don't know the answer of how we develop coaches. We also don't know the answer of how we develop players. We don't know how maybe you take a 17 or 18-year-old who's really mechanically great, has good game sense. how do we turn that into an LCS starting player? Maybe they need more emotional and mental health. Maybe they need to learn how to deal with that. Maybe determination, grit. Maybe they have bad decision making. Maybe they shut down. There's so many out of game factors that, the average coach, even myself included, don't know how to work through that, and I don't know exactly how to find those things. So I think that there is a certain amount of churn, especially at the NACL level, and especially worrisome at the LCS level, because you are taking somebody onto a contract, and every team wants to go to Worlds. Every team wants to be the North American talent that made it out of groups and didn't fizzle out in the quarterfinals. That's the goal for it. So I think it's a little bit more interesting that we put a lot of emphasis on players and developing talent, but not so much to the guys behind the scenes that are charged with making those things happen and actually showing improvement.
I've
Okay.
been toking hopium since 2015. I'm waiting. One of these days.
2016. All right, hang on. I say this every podcast, every time I get the chance. TSM wins one game against Samsung Galaxy. Doublelift doesn't dash into the Victor Ultimate, and TSM makes it to semifinal or to finals that year.
What is this, a
100%.
butterfly effect?
Well, because they would have taken the first seed off their head to head with Samsung. They would have played against Cloud9 in the quarterfinals, and they would have played against H2K in the semifinals, I believe. So yeah, baby, that's a path to finals. They would have taken Samsung Galaxy's path straight to the finals. But anyway, me coping aside, I don't hate you, Regdor. Congratulations. I agree
Nice.
with your
God.
opinion as well. I'll just say though, it's definitely both to some degree though. As someone who's been suffering along with NA for a long time, because you bring up 100 Thieves Next, and yeah, 100 Thieves Next I think was the great it's been this great pilot project for talent development. But 100 Thieves Next started in 2020, and NA Academy started in 2018. And I think those 2 years, especially, and even kind of the third when 100 Thieves Next was still getting its footing, um, that was really where I think we took our biggest dip. And I think, we lost out on probably like a generation during that time. Five Fire, Value, I think, are the big names that are going to, unfortunately, I think will kind of start to be forgotten over time because they never got to make it up and they don't play anymore. But I think, them and a lot of their generation really suffered from us neglecting that portion of our scene.
I'd be curious. You know, I kind of we kind of talked about like the what ifs and what if this kind of scene was able to develop a couple of years prior. What if they kept the consistency going? What if they kept it fed? Um and I think that brings up a really good point now is like, what what do you guys think we can be doing, or what do you think we're doing right this year with the NACL, with development, that maybe we've learned from these previous unsuccessful splits?
I think the NACL is a great step, and I'm really excited to see what becomes of it, especially with the ability to promote. I think a he, the Proving Grounds format itself was a step in the right direction. I think for the last couple of years to be able to go and compete with the academy teams, but now the ability to get into their league and just force scouts to have to pay attention to you is going to be a big development. I'm not a franchising hater, as I think a lot of people who share similar opinions to what I've said so far are. I think it was imperfectly implemented, but I still think we can get a good, robust talent development system even in a post-franchising society. But yeah, I think it was Coach Julian. I hope I'm not misattributing this, but somebody put out a very good twit longer just yesterday talking about how like a generation of players maybe did not develop the way that they should have, not just because they didn't get the opportunities, but because before they were even good enough to get those opportunities, they didn't push themselves because they didn't see a viable path to making it there. And I think this now the ability to form a team with your friends and in theory make your way all the way into the NACL as a provisional team is huge because even at its most base level, like there's got to be a number of players in like Master GM Challenger who are going to participate in this upcoming NACL queue this weekend who maybe wouldn't have otherwise if it didn't have as big of a payoff as it now does. And that itself is a victory, and it'll build over time as that is the case for more and more players.
Yeah, I think the one of the big steps in the right direction, and you hear a lot in a different context of like North American teams at Worlds. When do they do the best? They do the best once they've already been eliminated, going into the second round robin, and take away the elimination part. But it takes time to rise up to the level of your opponents. And in the old Proving Grounds format, you were 2 and out. So you had a very short amount of time to actually interact with quote unquote the next level of play and be able to catch up and be able to play that well. AoE Ginger Turmeric was a great example of like these academy killers doing these amazing things, and a lot of those players have found their homes on these provisional rosters. And now being forced, like you said, for people to look at you, being forced to go in there and get your teeth kicked in week by week until you learn, until you can get to that level of play, makes it so much better. And the whole time, let's just say, you're Wildcard Gaming 4-0, you still can't let off the gas, because if you fall behind, you're going to have somebody else right behind you ready to take you out in that relegation promotion tournament. And that's just a huge incentive to keep moving. But I think the way that like it kind of gets better is that we have to understand, especially for younger players, what is the path to pro. If I go to
Yeah.
CLOL, if I go to collegiate, that's not a direct path to professional play. Some players do make it there, and that can be a sideward thing. But just like I would tell any 18-year-old when I was a recruiter, don't go to college for fun. Go to college because there's something you're wanting to get out of it. And I don't think anybody, at least I hope not, is talking to 17, 18-year-old young man or woman looking at Collegiate League of Legends and saying this is how you get to the LCS, because it's not. It's not the same. It's a happy byproduct. So now having NACL there and making it accessible to high elo players is the reason to incentivize and kind of go up. So I think that helps a lot. It's just going to be, how do we shift this format? What does it look like year after year? Because top 32 teams for a qualifier, are we going to have 32 great teams? Are we going to have 32 teams at all? I'm not sure, especially with some changes that we're not going to have, you know, 17 team ambition teams, 14 AoE teams.
Yep. Yep.
That kind of cuts down on things
Yep.
a little bit.
Yeah, calling out these amateur orgs for fielding 18 teams. It's yeah, you're right. I will say one of the hypest moments that I had last year, for my Proving Grounds experience was when I was able to cast for one of the team ambition teams, and we played against CLG developmental team. They really gave CLG a run for their money, and it was one of those games where had they won it, they might have been able to make it out of the qualifiers and moved into the next round. And the game lasted like 45 minutes. We had like, I think at that point, like TA had like 300 people in the viewership chat, because we were like hosting a really big team and it was really fun. And I felt really pumped for that, because that's like a highlight moment for me if they win. Um, and it was so close. They almost won, but if you think about it, a lot of the players that were on, the TA, like that on that TA secondary team last split, like, or last year, they didn't have the same level of, clout, or the same position that a lot of the other players were, or a lot of the other players and other teams were in. And the fact that they were able to give them a run for their money, had scouts been in that Twitch, had they been either, felt like they needed to, or been obligated to watch it because it's an important match, like, that could have been a big moment for them. And who knows, what if they had the opportunity to do that? And I think, like you said, the opportunity to kind of witness, like, say, hey, witness me type of thing, is going to be a big deal for a lot of these players as we move into this year.
Yeah, and I just want to say this publicly so I don't get destroyed on social media. I'm not calling TA hoarders. I'm saying that a lot of talent came here because there's great infrastructure. But now that you can't have those 3, 4 teams, well, where do those players go? Are they ingenuitive enough to put together a team and get into this? Do they have the quote unquote adults in the room to be able to help navigate them through this. God forbid
Mhm.
if you're 5 random 18, 19-year-olds who win the promotion relegation tournament and you find yourself as a provisional team in the NACL, there's probably some sort of sponsorships coming your way. There's a lot of legal jargon. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about in gaming, where, again, something I love to talk about with Team Ambition is the fact that they literally support iron, bronze, and silver teams all the way up to NACL qualifiers, all the way up to the challenger level. And that is, what we should be doing in the amateur department. So I love Team Ambition. I'm not saying they're hoarders, just to get that out there now. Please don't cancel me on Twitter.
I would love a TA Hoarders like gold level team. I would join TA Hoarders and we would I don't know, we'd clutter our way to a grand finals win or something. We'd have weird catchphrases. We'd
Yeah.
collect them
So
all.
I appreciate you bringing a certain thing up there, Regdor, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I figured someday I'll bring it up on my NACL podcast, but I'm going to bring it up here first.
Love it.
Is an interesting conversation now to have is how much is an NACL spot really worth, like to sponsors and things like
Mhm.
that? Because I think part of the benefit, right, is it gives you these additional sponsorship opportunities. This is something like Myra used to always complain about when she was GMing Wildcard. Is we have these sponsors, but we barely even get to stream our own games, and our players are never on camera, and it's like it doesn't even matter from a League of Legends perspective. And NACL has the capacity to change that. And I think it has a whole bunch of spillover effects, right? It's like if you can sustain yourself via sponsors in the NACL, it starts giving these provisional teams, the kind of budgets to really be able to compete with CL teams as far as having good rosters. And something else that I'm curious about is if anybody is out there speculating on how valuable an NACL roster is, you could put together a banger team for these upcoming NACL qualifiers. Like, I've been thinking to myself for a while, I was like, I don't think they're that valuable, at least not yet. But if somebody does, if somebody's like, an NACL spot, that's $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, make up a number. If that's enough that it's worth paying players, I want to see like a Darshan Armeo mid laner Johnson Aframu team roll up to the NACL queues, and that team's 100% getting in. So it's an interesting opportunity then to feed back into even making the qualifiers competitive again. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. Aframu announced his retirement today, not as the only reason. Um, but I
Uh,
don't think that value is there quite yet. But it's an interesting conversation because the LCS used to be like that too, right? You would have teams like Ember who came in and made a big show of like, we're a CL team paying huge salaries because we want to get that LCS spot. And you could kind of do that exact same thing now, but on a smaller scale.
Good point. Good point. I that's a like damn Gordo. Fun fact, you're very smart and very insightful. And
Been here for years, Moose. I've seen it all.
oh my god. Fun fact, Gordo, you're the youngest person on this podcast right now. Like you're like 21 and Regdor's 23. I'm here 28 years old, almost 29 next week. So, you guys have your life ahead of you. Life ahead of you.
Moose, I'm the boomer here, right?
No way. No way. You're like 24. That's what you told me.
Oh, I'm 31. What are you talking about? But he said earlier when somebody said 2011 when they first downloaded League of Legends, I was like, I graduated high school 2 years before that. I was living in Japan at that time.
Oh my god.
It's a fun game to play. Where were you? And then how old was I? But I do want to say is I think that what makes the provisional teams monetizable, what makes them good for sponsors becomes what happens here in 8 months. If all 6 of the provisional teams, or really let's put this in the concept of 3 teams, if Cincinnati Fear, AoE Gold, and Wildcard Gaming end up being the bottom 3 in the standing through spring and part of summer, then yes, those spots are worth very, very little in the grand scheme of things because it's showing that they not that they can't compete, but that they can't compete. And that means that there's no staying power. And to me, if I'm an organization or if I'm a sponsor who has money to spend, I'm not going to use it on somebody who could be here today and gone tomorrow. And given these are pretty sustained names in the amateur space, but in the context of the NACL, these teams have to show that they have the ability to stay there for, say, a year, or they have the ability to fight their way through the promotion relegation and stick around, and that they have some sort of staying power. And then I think, I hate to use the phrase trickle down, but there is a certain amount of trickle down at that point, because it shows that we have a sustainable future in these amateur organizations. That when you look back at even proving grounds last year, how many rando teams were just a bunch of gamers that, like, do you have a business plan? Do you have capital? Do you have any idea how to do these things? Where we need the millennial gamers. We need the Gen Z, or not Gen Z, but Gen X gamers that care and are a bit older and have some of these life and business skills to help usher in and create that sort of thing. Again, we have it here with TA. We have it there with AOE, Cincinnati Fear, Wildcard Gaming, and a few others. But if it's just a, for lack of better terms, a group of randos that won the tournament and make it to the NACL, do they even know how to have a conversation with sponsors? Do they know how to say, like, we have this big of a fan following, this many live viewers, and start attacking this from different angles to do just that? And, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, it's Mr. Beast 2.0, and it's TA that's buying a franchising spot in 2040.
I think I think that really brings up a good point here in terms of a lot of these amateur orgs that are attempting to get into NACL, like, Team Ambition. They're doing their best to field a team here, and there's an expectation. Like, there is kind of, this is kind of like a, I don't want to say that it's a make or break point, but I do want to say that this is a test for Team Ambition, for some of these other organizations that have been around for a couple of years, that have been waiting for an opportunity to show what they can bring to the table, because the structure for an organization is already here in TA. But what's been problematic in the past is that they haven't been able to advance far in these qualifying tournaments. Like, I don't think last year at all TA fielded a team after Proving Grounds qualifiers, if I'm correct. And that's kind of like, now if you're able to get an NACL spot, these organizations that have the structure and the base and the idea of how to manage players and teams now have the opportunity to do that. And I don't want to say make or break, but it is, like I said, it is a test. And I'm very excited to see what Team Ambition, if they do get into the NACL, if they are able to get into the qualifiers, what can they bring to the table, and what value can they create? And I think the value can be pretty high. Like, Emma's Emma's stinky sometimes, but she has good production value. Gordo's cool. Protz Protz is a little weird at times, but we love him anyways.
Something else I'll say, just partially to make a call off a gut feeling, and say that I called it later on if it happens. On the subject of being able to monetize, and turn a profit on some of these CL spots, and being able to be a reliable team that is going to stay in. I think relegating 4 of 6 probably will not stay long term for that reason. That's a lot of teams to relegate out of your 6 spots. I think it's good to start, because it'll like let a cycle or two go through, and we'll make sure it'll be orgs that are really willing to dedicate the time and effort in. But I'm thinking back to when LCS first started. Again, to people who are newer to the scene, LCS used to be 8 teams, and it used to relegate 4. It used to relegate 2 playoff teams every split when it first started. And that's how CLG and Dignitas got almost relegated in the first split of the LCS. And they pretty quickly were like, okay, we need to reduce the number of teams we're relegating, and we need to add more teams total, so that you have a little bit more security. And then franchising was the ultimate lockdown of that same security to try to secure profitability. So I would expect that, if this NACL thing is successful, which I really, really hope and believe it can be, I would expect that we reduce the number of teams we're relegating after a couple of splits of this.
When it's hard to call FlyFam, TL First, CLG Faith.
That's
It's really hard to call them amateur. Yes, the level of players is not that of an LCS caliber team. 12 out of 10, I can buy that. But it's still a tier 1 organization investing in this. So is it realistic with the rosters, money, all those sorts of things that are possible for these teams to see them getting relegated? I would personally take that as a failure of a tier one organization's scouting
True.
abilities. So it almost becomes you're down to, like I said, those two or three teams that are quote unquote on the chopping block. Whereas these other ones, and I don't think it's been this much way in the past, but these other ones will be more quick to make changes, more quick to switch up their roster. Whereas these other teams may not have the capital to say so. They may not have the ability to drop a player and pick up somebody better than because all those people are on teams. And I think that I will probably be wrong on this, but I'd be willing to say that I do not think that there's any upgrades on the free agency, any upgrades in the NACL qualifiers off the top of my head. I think they would be side grades. Um, they'd be equal, but I don't think that we miss somebody that's just out there in La La Land hoping to be on a team. I could be wrong, but
I think
maybe
we
a
miss
hot take.
Zamudo, but other than that, I think I'd agree.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, for the most part, though, like you bring up like the point of is these they're not amateur teams. They are, they are the G leagues or the underlings of a major organization. There is a certain expectation, a certain standard that they know what they're doing, and it would be, I think, very disappointing if they didn't then perform and they didn't make that happen. Uh, I wanna ask you guys like quick rapid fire questions as we move into NACL. Champions you think are pick or ban guaranteed here in the NACL coming up?
Lucian, Nami, Jax.
Mhm. Yeah, Maokai staying up there. I think after the patches hit, I'll give like an outside answer because I know everybody's sick of this meta with the Zeri, the Yumi, the Lumishin, and the Nami, and the Vi, and the Wukong, and all those things. I know everybody's sick of all this crap. But I will say, I think teams are going to take a page out of Wildcard's book and start taking Zac more often. I think
Yeah.
Wildcard, their willingness to like flex Zac between top and jungle and always pair it with Oriana, which Soligo is really good at, is a lot of why they're 4-0 right now. And I think other teams will start to pick up on that.
Give me some flex initiators. Players that are champions and go in multiple lanes and can initiate a fight whenever they want. Let's do it. That's why I think, like you said, Zach. I think Zach is a good point. I I'm a big Horsey fan, but we'll see. We'll see about Hecarim, but
We got a little horse gameplay in NACL week one. I think there was like one game.
it's coming back. It's coming back. But my first true love is Wukong. So whenever I get to see Wukong play it, I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. But with that being said, we have somehow stumbled our way to an hour of League of Legends caster conversation. Some quick announcements before we get into final remarks. Shout out as always to Team Ambition for allowing us the opportunity to do this here every other week. If you guys have not done so already, please join the YouTube channel, follow it, subscribe to the Twitch, follow the Twitter, and join the Discord to stay up to date on all of the content that they are bringing out, especially the YouTube channel, which is getting more and more content each and every day. So follow Team Ambition on YouTube. You will not regret it. After that, shout out to some champions. Washed Up, TA Washed Up becoming the back-to-back champions in Aegis League of Legends Runeterra EMEA competition. Congratulations to Washed Up once again. Well deserved. You guys are phenomenal as always. Um, and shout out to Gordo and Regdor. You guys have some fun stuff coming up. I think Gordo, you got some fun announcements or something like that. Some fun content you're getting prepared.
Yeah, I've dropped an NACL podcast this year, so we're gonna be hopefully covering all split as long as we don't burn out. So that's the Salt Mine at the Salt Mine Pod on Twitter. Come check us out. Episode 2 will drop tomorrow at the time of recording, but maybe it dropped like yesterday something at the time we release this. Who knows? It drops Thursday morning.
Nice.
Whatever that happens to be.
Very good, very good. And of course, Gordo, you're also on Twitter. You're also doing, other fun casting stuff as well. Always fun to see you here. And yes, check out the Salt Mine. Gordo is is very smart and has fun facts and more geography, most
There's fun
likely.
facts there too, for sure.
Yeah. And Regdor, like you said, you're gonna be you're reffing again this year, but you are also doing other fun casting stuff as well. Any fun announcements or anything that the peeps should know about?
No, not right
You
now.
don't have any exclusives that you want to drop on the the Talks Ambition podcast?
I'm very ambitious in my talking. I'm hopefully gonna be doing something with one of the teams for qualifiers. I'd love to cover it. If I get into the program wholesale, I'll be co-streaming or doing whatever it may be. I'm gonna cover this in some way and continue to talk about players. You can see me on Twitter, Regdor Casts. I tweet random things about LA, League of Legends, and dancing. That's the big three. And other than that, no, I'm just continuing to vibe. If you watch the LCS and you see a bald guy roughly in the background, a silhouette, that's probably me.
Nice. I'll look out for you. I'll look out for you. I'll do it. I'll if I find you, I'll screenshot and I'll Photoshop and I'll say, "Hey, is this you?" And we'll get some fun content there. As for me, I'm very excited to talk about one of the upcoming lands that I was invited to cast for here in Vegas. If you guys want to have fun and talk about anime and talk about cosplay wrestling and all the fun land stuff, you guys can join us here next month for Level Up Expo. It is one of the biggest conventions for gaming and anime here in Las Vegas. We usually bring out a big crowd. We're going to be casting Minecraft, Smash, League of Legends 1v1s, Teamfight Tactics, Overwatch, and it's going to be over the course of 3 days. It is phenomenal, a ton of fun. So if you guys are out here in Vegas or are interested, look up Level Up Expo online and get your ticket, because you can see Moose in weird Moose outfits and fun colored hair and all that fun stuff. So that's my only announcement that I've got. The only cool thing that I'm doing. Not to humble brag, but I'm kidding. I'm kidding, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Regdor, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here for the Talks Ambition podcast. Gordo, as always, here with us. On behalf of all of us here at Talks Ambition, and guys, have a great rest of your day. See you guys next time. Take care.